Okay, perfect. Is that loaded now? Yeah, can you see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you again. As Sophie was saying, my name is Molly Pipping and I'm the Cancer Academy Programme Lead. And today I'm joined by my fellow team members, although, as I said, just struggling to get a couple of them on the line. But whilst we wait for them, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background and context in terms of what we're doing here at Greater Manchester Cancer Academy. So we're going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough today in terms of what our current vision is, what our offering is, the model, and what our future looks like. So we know that there's loads of other academies that are also popping up. I'm sure a few people on this call may have also heard about the Social Care Academy. We also know that there's a palliative and end-of-life care academy that are factoring in across Greater Manchester. But we want to talk to you really about what our messaging is at the Cancer Academy. So in terms of our vision, this all started over 18 months ago now. And what we want to do at Greater Manchester Cancer is to support the development of a sustainable lifelong learning model for our non-medical workforce, which is all designed to meet the current and future needs of the population. The hope is that this will transcend all care settings, so from primary and secondary to also community care. And we really want to make sure that our workforce are equipped with the skills and tools necessary to deliver the best patient care. We know that everything that we're striving towards also supports the NHS People Plan and the long-term plan ambitions for cancer services. And one of the beauties of having an academy and something that really acts as the hive of cancer education is that it's going to really allow us to reduce inequity in offerings as well as access to cancer education offerings, but also help to reduce any unwarranted variation in practice. We know it's great to have some variation because that's how we learn from one another, but in terms of the cause principles of the roles, make sure that those are standardised so that patients are getting the same level of care wherever they go. As I said, we've got quite a small but a mighty team who are delivering our Cancer Academy strategy from a range of different backgrounds, from clinical to education to also project managers and CNSs. So it's great to have a team that's really got multidisciplinary expertise behind this to really drive the vision. So, Satish, are you here yet?
I'll take this one from.
Oh,
that's all right.
Thank you.
Just sorry, we were both in a different meeting, having a lovely chat to ourselves on the telephone. Not realising I'm supposed to be here, so apologies for that. So I'm Dave Ross. I'm a urologist and I'm an associate dean, and I'm the education director of the academy. So really, some of this is about the current landscape, but also a little bit about the history of where this came from, and the Urology Academy was the starting point, and that's because Satish and I are both urologists, so we do waterworks for a living. And the history here is that we've always had a track record of requiring and training a broad non-medical workforce to support our patient needs. And some of that's because our populations got more elderly and we recognise that our waterworks dysfunction as we get older. But also the national workforce planning around our medical workforce was frankly not fit for purpose, and our national body recognised that and continually poked, but we've not had an increase in training numbers. So we very much required developing people's advanced skills, enhanced skills, whatever you want to call it, to deliver patient care. But because this is done in a haphazard fashion, dependent upon the needs of an individual service, an individual set of patient groups, then it really had no structure to it. So patients' outcomes and patients' experience of care was dictated by education and training, which frankly was entirely dependent upon the enthusiasm of the individuals involved in any given unit. So as a set of urologists, Satish and myself and Kieran O'Flynn, one of our colleagues, we really wanted to start to drive bringing some structure to this so that every individual who delivers urological care should have access to high quality educational content, but also to a clear framework for education. So whether that would be a syllabus or a curriculum, people needed to know what it is they needed to learn to be fit for purpose and their role in delivering patient care. So while we had assumptions as clinicians about what our colleagues needed to deliver their roles, actually that was the wrong way to look at it. So when we started this project, as I'm not entirely sure what Molly's already said to you, it was critical that rather than assuming that our medical assumptions were correct, that we actually asked what our workforce needed, because the individuals understand what it is that they do when they go to work. They understand where their stresses are about feeling unprepared, having the lack of educational training to be the best that they can be in their role. So, next slide, please. So this is really just what we've delivered to date, and that doesn't look a terribly exciting slide, but actually that's a massive amount of work. So the modules, and why are the modules interesting? Well, they're interesting because they focus on high volume work that may not be involved in specific urological care, but crosses the boundaries, particularly around things like blood in the urine, dealing with patients with prostate cancer, and definitely catheter care. Any environment, primary care, secondary care, social care, absolutely. These were our assumptions around some of this, but actually the detail and the narrative that we got from the scoping process of asking our workforce what they learned, so what they required for their learning, really helped us to focus the content within these modules. More importantly, how we've developed these modules has been through a collaborative process, working with different stakeholders, different HEIs, different educators, different individuals to put together content that's delivered in a range of fashions. Now that's really important because we know as educators that and individuals that we all have our own learning preferences. So the way we like to interact with content, the way we learn, and not just the way, but the when we learn. So there'll be moments in your working life when you just need some in the moment. What is it that I do when I'm faced with this problem? It's 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon and I need to deal with this block catheter or this patient who's really struggling with hematuria. Can I access content in that fashion? Alternatively, there's right, I've got my afternoon of learning and education. I want to set aside 4 hours and I want to learn a bit more about renal cancer. So there's it's the ways we interact with this content. And the modules and the work that we're doing has allowed us to explore different ways of presenting educational content. And part of the ongoing work in the next stages is to see how is our workforce interacting with this. What's the feedback from them? When are they using it? How are they using it? And is learning taking place? And ultimately, and this is probably the biggest challenge, is to learn from this work, how are we impacting patient care at the back end of this? Because really, this is what everything we do when we go to work is all about, is making a better patient experience, better patient care. The webinar stuff is fairly self-explanatory, but it just allows us again to produce content in a slightly different way. It's nice to have someone chatting to you for an hour about different things, an expert in the field who knows that inside out, can articulate the story in a slightly different way, in a way that may really work for you. So we've got bladder and testicular webinars coming up. And then our first full learning day event we've planned for the second last week of March. I think we tried to finalize that yesterday. And this is really exciting because it again allows us to put different content in a slightly different fashion using a range of individuals. And we're quite interested in this, not only to have stuff that's very much prostate cancer focused, but I'd be interested in putting some more generic learning and development content into this. So some of that might be things like imposter syndrome work, stuff that can really aid us in how we develop our workforce now, but also into the future. And then finally, the skills lab element. And you think, well, this would be dead easy to do. Everyone loves tech enhanced learning. Everyone loves simulation. But it's a really big challenge to find something that we can hit the spot in terms of really being attractive to a range of learners, but also be implementable at the scale that we need to ensure that across all the different environments where urological care has been delivered, that we can produce a relevant piece of simulation learning. And actually, we've come down to the trusty catheter. So we're working towards completing the skills lab content, and this will dovetail with the catheter care modules that we're doing with Manchester Metropolitan University. So there's just a bit of a taster on our thinking, on our progress, and the content that some of it's already out there live for you to go and play with, fiddle with, interact with, and some of it is coming in the next couple of months. So really exciting times. So I think, Molly, I'm handing back to someone else now.
Thanks, Dave. So I just wanted to really talk about what our model looks like based on what we've piloted as a proof of concept in urology, and how do we take something that we hope is quite nimble and transferable and make it into something meaningful across other subspecialities. So the home of our Greater Manchester Cancer Academy is our lovely looking website, if I do say so myself. And if we really truly want to be the hive for cancer education, then we needed a home for all of that content. So our website houses our learning management system, which has all of those modules that Dave was just talking about. We've also got a cancer education directory that sits within here, and an e-portfolio, which we will cover in more detail in just a second as well. But please do go to the website and have a click around. There's loads to explore already, even though we did only launch it 2 months ago. And there's also going to be loads more stuff coming very soon. So definitely go visit, have a click around and register your interest so you can get direct updates on your area of specialist interest. Next, we've got this blended learning approach. So everything that Dave was really just talking about. So everything that we do is quality assured. It's got a CPD stamp associated with it, and we are classed as our own accrediting body under the CPD UK umbrella. So modules, webinars, skills labs and face-to-face events are our starting point, but that doesn't mean that that's where it will end for us either. We've also had conversations about the delivery of education via the likes of podcasts. So there's definitely other areas for us to explore here. And again, just a quick summary there in terms of what that can look like. We did a scoping exercise with the University of Salford over a year ago now, and I think that one of the things that really highlighted, as well as the gaps in terms of our workforce need within the urology specialism, was also how people interact with learning. And we know that different things make different people tick, but we also know that we've got immense workforce pressure at the moment. So we really wanted to make sure that anything that we produce that's online can be accessible retrospectively or on different types of devices. So all of our modules are available on any type of device. So whether that's a tablet, a smartphone, a laptop or a computer, take your pick, any device, anytime. And all of the webinars that we do, when they are live, then that's great because people can interact with speakers, but everything will also be available retrospectively as well. So next, I know I mentioned at the start that we know that there's all of these other academies coming out. So yes, there's the Social Care Academy and a Palliative and End of Life Care Academy in Greater Manchester. We also know that beyond GM, there's other cancer academies such as Guy's and St Thomas's in Cheshire and Merseyside. But also we're in a really fortunate position within Greater Manchester because we've got a great infrastructure around us with other educational entities. So we've got the Manchester Academic Health and Science Centre. We've also got the School of Oncology in Gateway C. So for us, it's really important that we're seen as a collaborator and we work in tandem with all of these other entities so that we can pull everything together. So as part of our website, we have our cancer education directory. And really, this is really where our hub is. So anything that we don't do, we're not precious about. We're not going to duplicate resource. We want to signpost out to what's already in existence. So again, everything on here is quality assured. We've got our calendar of events, but we've also got a resource library. At the moment, this is specific to urology, aligned with our pilot proof of concept, but we are starting to flesh this out. So, you know, if you are also aware of anything else for other subspecialities, then please do get in touch with us as we start to flesh this out. And I'm going to hand back to Dave now to talk a little bit more around our e-portfolio and the frameworks and really how that links in with our learners' career journey and really empowers them to take their career into their own hands.
I think that bit said it all, actually. So our principle and one of the things that we really recognised is that there's a lack of an established culture of lifelong learning in a lot of the allied health professions. And medicine, it's kind of always been there. And one of the reasons around that is is that there's been funding for it, and therefore the content comes. So there's all very well putting together the content, but you need to then align that to the individual's learning needs in the moment, but also their learning needs to think about what am I going to do in 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. So where is I'm going in my career? And to us, putting in a portfolio function aligned to our educational content and to learning needs was absolutely critical, because we want our content to be used to support an individual's learning, but we want it to be used in a fashion that's going to really support them be the best that they can be, i.e. delivering the best possible care they can be, but also so that they want to stay in their role, they want to stay in their specialty, they want to see themselves develop through the various tiers over the rest of their career. So I think that to us, having a tool within our armamentarium of the content of the academy was absolutely critical. Now, if we go on to the next slide, that only really works if our learners understand what it is they need to do to be fit for purpose in delivering their role. And that's a really difficult ask. And it's primarily a difficult ask because if you ask any of our nursing colleagues at Salford what they do when they go to work, what their job means, every single one of them will be different. But there's some general and generic principles, and we could do that right across urology, but that would be such a huge piece, and we wanted to align with what was being done nationally. So the Ascend programme looks at the generic elements of cancer care across all the different range of roles, and great, that's perfect. It really supports individuals' learning, but it doesn't really help if you're specifically dealing with urological cancers and urological care. So what we wanted to do was to dovetail with the Ascend structure, so an agreed set of domains, an agreed set of principles that works for our workforce, but then we wanted to give it the urological slant, and that's really what we've done with the urology framework, is to set out very clearly, without being too specific, or we end up being a 300-side curriculum, what we think our colleagues need to do in different roles at different levels to deliver different types of care with the urological slant. Now, what's that going to do with the portfolio? Well, we want to be able to align or map all the educational content that we produce and the stuff that we signpost colleagues to the requirements of this framework. And then you can work backwards into your own portfolio. So if you've been doing the Hemat Sharia module as part of the learning, you can map that back into the urology framework, you can map that into the Ascend framework, and you can record all that through our e-portfolio. So what this does, it allows you at the time of your catch up with your supervisor, be that your appraisal or your three monthly catch up with your supervisor, set out some very specific learning goals and also provide evidence of the learning that you've covered in the last 6 months. So this really starts to drive this process, this cyclical process of lifelong education and learning. So back to you, Molly.
Thanks, Dave. So I think that really encompasses in terms of how do we take this model that we've currently got of all of these different sectors and then transfer it to these 18 other subspecialities that we've identified as a Cancer Alliance. And as you can see here, there's so many different opportunities within each of the different pathways. And now I'd just like to pass over to Tara, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about one of our initiatives that we're looking at under the psychological care pathway.
Thanks, Molly. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Shafe, and I am the Cancer Academy Assistant Project Manager. So I'd like to talk to you today about the psychological care modules, this one, which I'm actually leading on. So the NICE guidelines from 2004 state that healthcare professionals have limited abilities in detecting the psychological needs of people with cancer. To address this issue, the Cancer Academy is currently working on the creation of modules with the aim to provide level 2 training in psychological assessment for healthcare professionals who have direct responsibility for the care of patients affected by cancer. The targeted audience who would actually benefit from these modules would be allied health professionals, clinical and cancer nurse specialists, and potentially cancer support workers. The psychological level 2 hybrid modules currently comprises of 6 modules, 5 of which would be online e-learning modules, and the 6th would be a module which would be face-to-face. Next slide, please. The Cancer Academy is working in collaboration with the Kit Christie's Psychological Oncology team. We have subject matter experts from the Psychology and Mental Health Board who have volunteered their time and expertise to develop content for the modules. Our project approach comprised of what forms of communication we would use, how we would develop and deliver content, how often we should actually meet, and what the nature of the meetings should be. Also, how we would plan to deliver the end products. For good governance, we set up a steering group to review and discuss the direction of the project and how it is progressing. We also update the Psychology and Mental Health Pathway Board to seek advice when needed. Our modules are reviewed by peers and those who will ultimately use them. We promote our educational offerings on our Cancer Academy website, as well as through stakeholders, forums, pathways, newsletters. We expect the benefits of completing the psychological care modules to be easy bite-sized learning that is convenient to access at home or at work. The learning content to be accessible on multiple devices such as phones, laptops and iPads. We want the patient care that is received to be standardised and not varied, and to see an improved quality of care for the patients across Greater Manchester. We want there to be a better understanding of how to identify psychological issues within a patient and know what the next steps can be for signposting them to other services. To help further the knowledge across the workforce, we would hope that the modules could be picked up nationally and used as a national exemplar for psychological care level 2 training. The 5 online modules aim to be completed by March 2023. Module 6 would be the face-to-face sessions and should run from April 2023 until March 2024. I'd like to thank you for your time and pass you back to David.
So it's interesting me. The future, and I think what Tara's just described really speaks to where we want to go, because the beauty of the Psych Level 2 stuff is it applies across every pathway. So really now we're starting to think about how can we take this proof of principle, this model of education, and apply it and share it with people and colleagues who work right across the cancer system and perhaps well beyond that. And the Psych Level 2 stuff is a perfect example that whether you have a urological complaint or whether you have a colorectal or breast complaint, the content is generic, it's shareable, it's transferable. And we like to think that our overall model is fairly nimble. And yeah, the content's got to be different, but the guiding principles and how we deliver the content, how we put together the content, and how ultimately we will use it to drive lifelong education will be the same no matter which pathway you are within. And it absolutely aligns with the national direction of travel of how we train our non-medical workforce and indeed our medical workforce to ensure that we are responsive to the needs of our population and therefore that we are fit for purpose at any given time. And that's critically important. We'll see that when we look at the HEE documents around delivering a fit for purpose workforce. So it's fit for purpose at any given time. So it comes to this bit, everything is underpinned by our workforce need. But actually, when you take that one step further, everything's underpinned by the needs of our patients. So I think now it's talking about, next slide please, Molly, about scale. And so we can see that the bottom corner, we're looking reasonably tasty in the urological world, and we go to the other far corner, psychological care is coming along. And the next areas we've really started to collaborate with and work with is around acute oncology. And that's important, again, because a lot of the content will apply regardless of your pathway. So it might be acute oncology, but the work we're doing now is around metastatic spinal cord compression. And that is something that we will face as clinicians, as support workers, as advanced practitioners, or whatever your role is, right across a range of cancers. And I think we're at the stage now, and certainly that's the feedback we get from colleagues in different pathway boards, that they see how this model can work for them. And that's the beauty of the infrastructure we have within Greater Manchester, is that the pathway boards are driven by people who get it, who get their area, and they can see how generic ideas, models, proof of principle can be applied to benefit their teams and ultimately to benefit their patients. The other part of collaboration, which is critical to us, and I think Molly articulated this earlier, that we know we're not a unique beast. We're just an academy with some enthusiasts who've driven something that they think is the right thing for our people and for our patients. But now we need to see how we can work with other people within our system, so how we can deliver the cancer education for our system, but also how we can start to work in the broader scale regionally nationally. And again, Tara's already alluded to the fact that the Psych Level 2 work could become the national exemplar. And we will see this type of model also having that same type of opportunity. But scaling myself back for a second and bringing myself back to the moment, where do we go next? So we've already working, if we go to the next slide again, Molly, with across the GM system through MASK, and it's agreed as a group that the Cancer Academy would sit as the hub for cancer education. And I'm not going to bore you with going through all of these principles, but I'm going to pick a few words out of each of the, I can't remember how many principles actually were because I can't see the second slide, but the first one here, this networked approach, and talk about coordination, but it's really to improve access to cancer education right across GM. So that's, to me, that speaks to you should be able to access the same type of education, the same learning opportunities, no matter what your postcode is within GM, no matter whether you work in primary care, secondary care, social care, no matter what your specific role is. The second part is that the cancer group that will have oversight of this will ensure that we're aligning with relevant objectives, i.e. what our patients, what our people need, but we've got coordination across all the different groups who are delivering educational content, who have flesh in the game of education across Greater Manchester, so that we're not at odds with each other, that we're absolutely working in a collaborative fashion. The Independent Digital Hub, well, that's our GM Cancer Academy website, because not only does it look good, we think it will be really functional in how learners will interact with learning content. And you want to be able to go to one place to get your education, and whether we signpost or link you out of that, you know that if you start at the Academy website, you will get relevant learning for you that's quality assured and that will actually match to learning needs set out in a regional and therefore a national framework. So we talk about directory, signposting, and also it supports appraisal. And appraisal in medicine, and I know a lot about that because I'm the responsible officer for the NCA. It is something which drives an individual's development. So it's very much individual focused. It's not about a performance review. It's about what am I doing as an individual to be the best that I can be to deliver the best possible care. So again, we think that these principles are really important in supporting that ethos and that culture. So we just flip to the next one. So number 6, the words I want to highlight: unwarranted variation in practice. So if we get our educational offerings right and standardize the learning opportunities, therefore we would hope that the quality of care and the nature of care that's delivered at the patient-facing end of all of this is the same. And that's what we want. We want our patients to get the same outcomes no matter where they are regionally, nationally, etc. The next bit's going to want to make sure that it's up to date and it's evidence-based. And I think that's important to have the scale of all these different educational stakeholders involved in this, because if you're a little beast, it's very, very difficult to have the resource to ensure and assure the quality of the educational content. And we know that things are endlessly changing. How do we do things? What's the guidance saying now? What's the evidence saying now? And it's very, it's like when you write a textbook, it's always out of date by the time that you've actually published it. With this, we've got the opportunity to actually be up to date, to be able to push the evidence and the guidelines into this or link out to them as they come online, as they become live in the patient-facing world. So I think I'm not going to dwell too much longer on these principles, but I think why this is important for you to see is that we've gone from 3 clinicians worrying about the educational offerings being delivered to our colleagues so that they could support our patients, to actually delivering a model which can start to address the learning needs of our colleagues to drive patient care, but that is now sat within a framework and a structure within a large conurbation like Greater Manchester. And it has a set of principles which are really sound in ensuring that we deliver high quality education long term for all of our colleagues that work in cancer care. So I think that's probably all my chat.
All your chat. Thanks, Dave.
There's loads of chat, isn't there? Sorry.
Oh no, thank you. I hope that that's given you a summary in terms of really what we're looking to do with the Cancer Academy and what our future is, but or where we're actually at now. It's not the future anymore. But if anyone does have any questions, then please pop your hands up and ask away. Everyone's stunned into silence.